Now back to Just Energy Radio with Dr. Rita Louise.
Hello and welcome back to Just Energy Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Rita Louise, and thank you all for staying tuned to the second hour of the show. Don't forget, if you haven't jump-started your intuition yet, go and get your free 50-page guide from the Institute of Applied Energetics. That's www.appliedenergeticsinstitute.com. And while you're there, check out all of their training programs. You can learn to become a medical intuitive counselor, or energy medicine practitioner, all from the comfort of your own home. That's www.appliedenergeticsinstitute.com. And I know you've been wanting to get a copy of my new DVD, Icon, Deconstructing the Archetypes of the Ancients. Go to soulhealer.com. We have some great packages going on that you can have some, I can talk, you can get some excellent savings. So soulhealer.com, get your copy today. And if you don't want to buy the DVD, you can get it on Amazon Digital Download, $1.99. What a bargain. You can't even get a Starbucks coffee for that much. Not even a grande for that much. Anyway, so in this hour, we're going to be speaking about UFOs. Should I believe? And to do that, we're going to be speaking with Dr. Robert Davis. Let me tell you a little bit about him and get him on the air. If you question why the subject of UFOs should be taken seriously, Robert Davis, PhD, may provide you with that answer. Fascinating evidence, new perspectives, and detailed analysis make his thought-provoking work understandable at every level of knowledge and belief in the UFO phenomena. So we are going to find out everything and discover if there is enough evidence out there that we should believe in UFOs. His book is The UFO Phenomena, Should I Believe? His website is, the UFO phenomenon.com. So please welcome Robert Davis. Hey, Dr. Bob, how's it going?
Oh, Dr. Rita, it's a pleasure to be on your excellent show. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Well, thanks for coming on the show. I think we're going to have a fun and lively talk tonight. But Dr. Bob, let's start here. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what got you interested in studying UFO phenomenon in the first place?
Well, you know, it started when I was a young child. I guess I was exposed to too many Star Trek and Twilight Zone reruns, which I found intriguing then, and I would certainly still find it quite intriguing. But what really motivated me to write this book was when my wife and I visited Sedona, Arizona, a beautiful city. I don't know if you ever visited it, Dr. Rita. But in the night sky, we observed two orange orbs. One of them either came from behind it or from it. I couldn't tell. But they remained stationary for several minutes and then suddenly winked out. From that day forward, I said, I have to address this phenomenon in a book. And my hypermanic state, I guess, compelled me to begin writing and to conduct some serious research in order to formulate some opinions and analysis of the phenomenon, which is still unresolved. So I do, nevertheless, strongly believe, on the basis of all the evidence that I reviewed, that certainly something very unusual exists in our skies that obviously defy logical explanation. And it's an extraordinary mystery, and it does have potential significant implications. And there is no doubt that the scientific community must become more engaged in studying this phenomenon, because they regard it, in a sense, as a pseudoscience. And it's unfortunate, because, if anything, we need a lot more scientists involved in studying this phenomenon. And with my background in science, Maybe that also contributed to my interest in the UFO phenomenon, because it obviously is a mystery, like the pyramids, among many other mysteries that exist today. But I do believe that UFOs exist. There obviously are physical objects in the sky that cannot be explained. They obviously defy inertia and gravity. And my position essentially doesn't apply to the existence of UFOs, but rather to its nature and origin. Obviously, UFOs exist. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But the primary question is to determine the who, what, and whys associated with the phenomenon. And for that, I don't pretend to have a clue. So after I reviewed and analyzed as much evidence as I possibly can, I'm really not convinced one way or another as to whether or not UFOs are what we call extraterrestrial, or from another planet, either or they're from another space-time, or a natural, man-made, so to speak, phenomenon. I simply don't know. But it should be obvious that people from all over the world for several decades and probably many centuries have certainly observed something that's very unusual in our skies. And we have very limited understanding of the phenomenon. Despite all the research, supposedly, that has been done over the past several decades, I don't think we have made much progress in terms of understanding what governs and regulates this phenomenon, other than better understanding whether or not a UFO represents non-human intelligence. And I don't think anybody can convincingly say that there is irrefutable evidence that indicates that non-human intelligence is visiting our planet. Now, the controversy is going to persist. There always has been controversy among skeptics, believers, and debunkers. And many UFO researchers firmly contend that these physical craft, again, that defy logical explanation, that's inconsistent, let's say, with scientific principles, that move in inexplicable ways. And what we do need to do is to have a multidisciplinary scientific investigation of this phenomenon in order to better determine what regulates its behavior. And maybe it has significant implications for science and society.
Okay, but let's back up. Let's back way up. I mean, one of the things that you mentioned is, well, we don't really know where they come from. We don't know, what they are or whatever. And on a lot of levels, we haven't gotten past the point as a society that we can even say that they're here. I guess my point is, does it really matter where they come from at this point in time versus getting to a consensus, a reality consensus that there are extraterrestrials, there is a phenomenon going on and we need to investigate this phenomenon. It's kind of like people that have heart attacks. Well, I can't see it. It's like, but you have enough people that complain about it, they investigate it, and we haven't even gotten to the point that we agree that it's even happening, especially in the scientific community.
Well, I think that it is happening.
Well, and I'm not arguing. I think it's happening too, but
yeah. The question is what is happening governed by non-human intelligence? And if that is the case, where are they from? And what is their purpose? What's the objective? And we don't know. We don't have a clue. Despite, again, many leading ufologists who contend that they're extraterrestrial, who contend that the government and military are covering it up for whatever reason. Some leading ufologists believe that crashed saucers have been obtained along with dead bodies, so to speak, and exists in some underground base somewhere in the United States. The issues are not only significant, but they're so perplexing, and there are so many topics related to ufology. Not only whether or not non-human intelligence is visiting or not visiting our planet, but there are associated phenomena with UFOs, like the alien abduction phenomenon, which is interesting in and of itself, or cases of high strangeness, paranormal issues, quantum physics, and related consciousness. There are so many areas of mystery surrounding this UFO phenomenon. We can spend, as you know, many hours discussing it. So we can talk about the need for more scientific inquiry into the phenomenon. Indeed, this needs to be done. And in fact, Mary Rodwell, who you had as a prior guest just before this show, she's a co-founder of a foundation for extraterrestrial experiencers, and this is the first attempt to provide proper governance and scientific inquiry to investigate what is going on. And we have to better understand the relationship between science and consciousness and the UFO phenomenon to see if there is a relationship. And it also incorporates the alien abduction phenomenon. Some surveys that have been done are quite astonishing.
I mean, like the Kathleen Martin and Denise Stoner one? That one I thought was really good.
Exactly, Dr. Rita. That's a very good point. And the results of that survey, along with the results of the survey that's being done by the Foundation for Extraterrestrial Encounters, are enlightening in the sense that so many people are having such unusual experiences with other entities, let's say. And the problem is maybe this phenomenon, alien abduction phenomenon, will provide some keen insight into the UFO enigma, because we don't have, at least in my mind, tangible, irrefutable evidence that non-human intelligence is visiting Earth.
But I mean, if you think about it, they're kind of tricky. They fly around and then they take off. It's not like we can go and get one and put it under a microscope. We can't go into a jungle somewhere and capture one and dissect it. And so everything we're doing is from cryptic photographs from people's cell phone. And so, even in the data collection, I'm not talking about the experiencer part, but in the actual UFO type craft and UFO sightings, we're not at luxury to sit down with it and examine it, because we don't have anything to examine. It's elusive at best. I mean, unless, they got those crafts from Roswell and they're in the hangar and they're studying them and that whole conspiracy. But anyway.
You're exactly right, Dr. Rita. I confirm your statements. And that's why I lack some conviction about what is governing the UFO phenomenon, because there is no tangible evidence, at least in my mind, despite the contention by many ufologists. There's no irrefutable, tangible, measurable evidence that supports the belief that we are being visited by non-human intelligence. I don't discount that, however, as a possibility.
But what about when they see something on radar and they, send the fighter planes after it, and then the thing disappears and people also see it from the ground, and so there's multiple observers of a single event? They don't count that as being real or tangible enough that something that we can't explain is going on?
Well, that's an excellent point. And that's all we have in terms of tangible evidence, the simultaneous pilot radar confirmation of some physical craft that is moving at thousands of miles per hour, that's paralleling a plane, that's making nonlinear maneuvers. You're exactly right. But in terms of the scientific community, they want to apply the scientific method to something physical that can be tested and analyzed to either support or refute a hypothesis. And the problem is you can't apply the scientific method in the manner in which scientists are, familiar with to this phenomenon. And it's unfortunate because we don't understand the phenomena enough to apply the current scientific principles in order to study this evidence. There is no tangible evidence other than what you just said, the photos, mass sightings, radar confirmation, the pilot visualization. There's numerous types of evidence that are like that, but most of it is anecdotal from witnesses, and thus the scientific community doesn't really buy into it. There are exceptions, of course, but most scientists don't even want to get involved in studying this unique phenomenon for fear of ridicule from their colleagues. Reminds me of Dr. John Mack. I'm sure you and your listeners are familiar with the leading psychiatrist from Harvard University who studied the alien abduction phenomenon. And after interviewing several hundred individuals who claimed to have been abducted by UFOs, he became a believer. Initially, he was a skeptic. But because he believed in the alien abduction phenomenon, he had a fight for tenure with the administration at Harvard University. And after a long legal battle, he eventually won. But the point is, I think that set a precedent for many scientists not to get involved or not to discuss it for fear of ridicule. But the problem is, you're right. We don't have enough tangible evidence unless the UFO lands.
Well, we don't have enough tangible evidence that they want, that the scientists want.
That's correct, and you're exactly right. And that point might be a biased issue. Thus, we cannot probably apply current scientific principles and thus a scientific method to properly understand this phenomenon. It took, 66 years to go from Kitty Hawk to when we first stepped foot on the moon. The next 60 plus years will provide the types of scientific principles, possibly, that will enable us to better understand this phenomenon.
But it's not even just that. I mean, at least in the UFO phenomenon, there is a potential of something tangible. When we start talking about, interdimensional beings and ghosts and the nature of consciousness or telepathy, I mean, we're talking about something that is all you're ever going to have is anecdotal evidence. There's never going to, I mean, unless they come up with some, cool, spiffy tools to measure it.
Well, you're right. And many ufologists, though, feel that we do have tangible evidence. But, and I'm related to tangible evidence. It brings up to mind the Roswell flying saucer crash, which I'm tired of. And tired of listening to that controversy. But that's where ufology is right now. They take a retrospective approach, analyzing past incidents. And I don't discredit researchers who continually analyze the Roswell UFO, supposedly UFO incident, or the Rendlesham Forest UFO issue, among many other specific incidents, again, which provide anecdotal witness testimony, which you can't ignore. It is important to understand that. And I don't discredit, again, many organizations that have devoted much time and effort in terms of trying to better understand this phenomenon. We have learned a lot about the kinematic, so to speak, behavior of UFOs, but it doesn't provide us with the who, what, and why is associated with the phenomenon. And that's the issue at hand, I think. And there's nothing but theories out there. One is and you mentioned this, the extra-dimensional theory, or the extraterrestrial hypothesis, along with the psychosocial issues and time travel, and among other theories that attempt to provide some logical explanation for this. And it reminds me of what you just mentioned, the extra-dimensional hypothesis, where Stephen Hawking, the leading theoretical physicist who wrote the book, The Grand Design, he proposed that one can have different universes in one existence, which he termed the multiverse. And another leading physicist, Dr. Green, says there are a couple of multiverses, and thus there are many entities that are allowed for by this theory. In other words, we're living in one dimension while there are other beings that exist in other dimensions, that coexist, in a sense, with our reality. Now, obviously,
I like to use the Star Trek. They're in a different time-space continuum.
Oh, yes. That's a good way to put it. That's a very good way to put it. But, based on that, it reminds me of, and I talk about this in the book, about J. Allen Hynek, who initially was a skeptic. He was a leading astrophysicist who led several scientific investigations back in the 60s and 70s. Of course, Project Blue Book and Project Sign Grudge, that attempted to better understand this phenomenon. And he gave a speech at the International UFO Congress back in the 70s. And he says that this phenomena encompasses both the physical and the psychic, the material and the mental. Now, I'm not exactly sure what he means, but it kind of relates to what we call high strangeness and the associated so-called paranormal aspects of this phenomenon, whereby UFOs can materialize and dematerialize or change shape, and obviously move at thousands of miles per hour, making 90-degree turns. Many people also who come in contact with UFOs or report to be allegedly abducted by alien beings and brought to a craft report very similar types of psychological and physiological effects. Generally positive, in fact, And if you read about the alien abduction phenomenon, it is fascinating in the sense that we have such similar reports by so many individuals who contend that they have been abducted. Now, are they all hallucinating? I don't think so. Are they getting? Are they reporting this on the basis of watching too much Star Trek and other related UFO shows? I don't think so. But let me, if you don't mind, let me share with you some of the survey results from about 700 individuals or experiencers. Now, here's a question: do you believe you have observed a non-human intelligent entity? Of the 700 individuals who responded to the question, 57% said yes. Here's another question. Besides seeing this non-human intelligent entity, have you interacted in any way with this or these entities? 74% said yes. And then another question. I'm not going to bore you too much longer. Can you describe what group of ETs, extraterrestrials, have you observed? Well, the responses from over 700 individuals ranged from energy beings to short grays, the typical gray aliens, 3 to 4 feet tall. Some were tall grays, up to 9 feet, insectoids, reptilians. Many were human-looking, spirit forms. The range of reported, creatures or beings that have been observed or encountered with is remarkable. Is it all in their minds, or are they in fact encountering beings of various types? And is that tangible enough? Well, I don't think the scientific community is going to accept it as being tangible evidence, despite the anecdotal testimony by hundreds, if not thousands, of individuals, and probably millions worldwide for many decades and probably centuries, who reported these types of close encounters and the resulting psychological impact that it has had on them. And again, those who do have these unique experiences, as Mary Rodwell, for instance, will contend, come away feeling more positive about life, become more sensitive with the environment, feel more love towards other people. The reaction generally is very positive in many ways. And the question is, even though that's not tangible for the scientific community, the question I have is why? Why are so many people having such similar experiences and coming away with those experiences with a positive impact?
And that's a great question.
Yeah, and you can't answer it, and it's very unfortunate that we can't measure, analyze using principles that we are familiar with at the current time.
But why do we have to? Why do we have to take this stuff, these experiences, because everybody's experience about anything is going to be different. Why do we need to put it under a microscope? Why can't we just allow people to have their experiences, to have their feelings, to have whatever life holds for them? Why do we feel like we need to control it and manipulate it and quantify it?
Well, Dr. Rita, that's an excellent point. And,
see, I told you I kind of sometimes ask a little hard questions.
You're good. I really like you as a host. You ask very good questions. Why is right? Why? I guess it leads to that first question you asked me. Why? Well, it's a mystery. And I, as well as most people, I think, like mysteries and like to solve mysteries. And and I guess with a scientific background, I try to seek evidence that is tangible, that potentially can be measurable. But that's the frustrating part of this whole phenomenon. And I think it's because it's only 2015 and not 3015 or 4015. In other words, we don't have, again, the scientific principles and level of understanding to firmly understand what governs and regulates this phenomenon. But you're right. Let these people have their experiences and have a positive, generally positive effect on their lives, and let it be. Well, I agree with you, but I also am so intrigued by what governs this phenomenon, because again, if we can understand what regulates its behavior, then maybe we can have some positive implications resulting from that for both science and society. But it's elusive, and it exists in theories alone that are proposed, such as the multiverse theory or wormholes that are believed to exist, where again contend that space can be bent and thus, we can travel trillions of miles in a second. If we want to go to a planet to our nearest solar system, Proxima Centauri, which is about 4.2 light years away, something like 70 plus trillion miles away, it would take the space shuttle going 25,000 miles an hour, about 100,000 years to get there. But people like Carl Sagan and Stephen Hawking, among other theoretical physicists, contend that wormholes, in other words, do exist that can allow theoretically for aliens from other star systems to visit our planet in the blink of an eye. Here again, we don't have any tangible evidence to support that, although mathematically it can be proven, but still we can't firmly, irrefutably accept it as fact. And I need tangible evidence to give me the necessary facts to understand what is going on.
But I think that there's a part that you're never going to get tangible evidence. For example, how people end up interacting that are having these experiences, the experiencers, and they're having these positive experiences. In my mind, it makes me think that they're having a connection. And so, you're talking about these things, like somebody in the chat room asked about implants, which I'm hoping you'll speak to that point in a minute. But if you're talking about culture, and if you're talking about relationships, and if you're talking about feelings, you can't quantify love. You can't measure love. So how, and so it's kind of like, unless you come up with a different way of measuring it.
Well, that is very true. I agree with you. And many ufologists, if not most, contend that there is sufficient evidence that provides irrefutable evidence that we are being visited by beings from another world, dimension, what have you. And I can run through an entire list of specific incidents, especially that have been revealed through the Disclosure Project led by Stephen Greer and also Stephen Bassett, where many military government officials, among others, have reported on their experiences with UFO encounters. And they're extraordinary. And people can go on the computer on YouTube and just type in the Disclosure Project and listen. to individuals report their experiences. They're unbelievable. Even I forget, astronaut Gordon Cooper, said he saw a UFO land in the desert, and then and beings came out of it, went back in, and the thing took off in a blink of an eye. Now, again, that's not tangible. That's anecdotal evidence, but it's coming from somebody who is credible. And he's not alone. There are thousands of credible witnesses, from astronauts to pilots to individuals from all walks of life, from all over the world, maybe throughout time, who again have these types of experiences that, you're right, can't be quantified like love, but do see it, hear it, although it's generally not audible. They don't generally make a sound, and observe it, and often experience very strange paranormal-like effects from it. And I can share with you, and I'm sure you're familiar with some very unusual incidents reported by astronauts and pilots that are hard to ignore and difficult to refute. So, I want to know why a pilot says there's a craft on my left wing that's following us, and then all of a sudden the co-pilot says, I see one on my right side. And then somebody from the back says, guess what? There's someone, there's a UFO following us. And radar confirms it. Now, again, how tangible is that? Well, it's not measurable in a laboratory, and that's what the scientific community wants. You can't measure love in a laboratory either, but obviously it exists. You're exactly right, Dr. Rita. And that's the perplexing nature of this phenomenon. We only have witness testimony, but despite the contention by many ufologists who believe that we do have tangible physical proof. I don't see it, but that's the belief many hold. But in my investigations, that's pseudoscience, and that's why ufology is considered such. It's not considered a science, which is very unfortunate, because it should be. And we need to get have a serious scientific study by a multidisciplinary team of researchers from numerous fields, as well as the political community as well, who need to provide the necessary funding for appropriate research to be conducted, so that we can better understand this phenomenon, which does exist.
But short of getting witness testimony, which would include the experiencers, we still don't have anything to measure, poke, or prod.
Well, you're right. What we can measure their velocity, we can analyze their shape, and they come in all shapes and sizes. We can analyze how they maneuver in our skies, which of course defies logical explanation, since they seem to mitigate inertia and gravity. We can analyze their color, which can change, as well as their shape. But here again, we can't take a flying saucer and put it in a laboratory and start to analyze what it's composed of, who's running it, who's operating it, in other words. And the scientific community wants that. But we do have some evidence of its existence, and again, its kinematic behavior. But that's about it.
I thought they had evidence of its velocity to a certain extent, and they had that kind of data, and it still gets pushed to the side, or they say, oh, it was just some bird, or it was a equipment failure or operator error or something. Especially the radar data. I mean, that's, to me, pretty freaking conclusive, especially if you have 2 or 3 other witnesses, you know, other points of reference talking about the same event.
Well, that's very true, and you can't dismiss hundreds, if not thousands, of incidents just like you described. I agree with you, and that's why I and certainly many others believe that this phenomenon is real. There is no doubt that it exists in my mind. The question is, what is it? And is it governed by, again, non-human intelligence? And if so, what is their objective? And that's why we can get back, in other words, to the alien abduction phenomenon, and maybe that can provide some unique insight into the phenomenon. I don't know. But we have
but Dr.
tangible...
Bob, you're like the expert here. You can jump through your computer and just hit me, but I'll be quiet.
But we have, you know, the types of evidence that we have to support the nature of this phenomenon is not only in terms of simultaneous radar and visual confirmation of these unusual aerial events, but also the effect that UFOs have had on nuclear missile sites in both the United States and in Russia, where they activate and deactivate missiles, which the military contends is impossible to do so, but they have. Even cosmonauts have reported very unusual encounters with these aerial phenomena in space. Now, is it tangible? Not to the extent that the scientific community wants, and that's unfortunate. And if anything, we have many paranormal-like issues associated with it, like crop circles, and you mentioned alien implants, which crosses over into the alien abduction phenomenon, among other types of evidence that, you're right, are not measurable, but their effects on people, their effects on nuclear missiles, their general strange behavior that we cannot clearly understand using current day methodology is something that is troubling to me, at least. And unfortunately, too many ufologists make conclusions on the basis of inadequate tangible evidence. And I mention it in my book, how, you know, the number of ufologists who believe strongly that we're being visited by civilizations from other star systems. Now, how do you make that kind of conclusion? I don't know, but many do. Now, are there strange aerial phenomena? Of course. But how can you say that they're from another solar system or space-time, or it's a paranormal type of event, or can quantum physics somehow provide the answer? Or is it an effect on our consciousness? And here again, many people who do encounter UFOs report a very unusual effects, such as being levitated by the UFO, or having lost time, or people who are abducted, of course, feel that they were that they came in contact with alien beings on other ships, and they even had came in contact with alien babies or hybrids. Now, this relates to alien implants as well. And again, is that tangible evidence? Well, Dr. Lear, who did some research with these implants from individuals who contend that they were implanted with some device during an alien abduction encounter, Dr. Lear contends that when he tried to surgically remove it, these objects literally moved away from his scalpel as he tried to remove it from the individual. Now, is that tangible to say that something is very foreign or extraterrestrial to our understanding? And if so, if there are implants, what are they, and why are people being implanted with these devices? And again, here we don't have that tangible evidence, enough at least to satisfy the scientific community. And you're right. Why should we? Don't we have enough evidence in the form of observations, the effects on nuclear missiles, on people? Well, we do. We do. And that's why many ufologists believe that UFOs are governed by non-human intelligence. Yet, the vast majority of scientists will not accept it, because here again, we can't apply the scientific method in the manner that is traditional and consistent with the types of research that scientists generally employ. And that's unfortunate, because probably the scientific method cannot be applied to this phenomenon. And that's the frustrating aspect to it. So we have to rely on, pilot, radar, simultaneous confirmation, among other lines of evidence that are more than not anecdotal in nature. That doesn't mean what? That we're not being visited by intelligence from somewhere else. I don't know. I don't have the answer, and in my mind, nobody has the answer, despite the contentions by many ufologists who believe that they do have the answer. I don't see it, and that's why I I am very frustrated, in a sense, that we cannot understand what is going on, because something is.
Well, and I think the researchers are frustrated as well, where they want to do and are game for doing serious research, but they're not taken seriously. And so they're not able to get any kind of funding. I mean, I know a lot of UFO people, but I know even more ghost people. And I know some very serious researchers who are looking into the whole ghost phenomena, So, I mean, I think there are parallels myself, but that's just me. And they get laughed at a lot, but they are very serious. I mean, when you're starting to measure gravity and barometric pressure in an environment, I mean, I'm sorry, that starts getting a little serious, in my opinion. In controlled situations, and they get nothing. And so it's just more of the same. It's just more of the same.
Oh, there's no question about it. I don't know if ghosts are real or it's in the mind of the beholder, but certainly something is going on there. I do believe that, but I don't know what type of phenomena it is. But here again, is it measurable? Well, we have EVPs, electronic voice. I forget what it stands for. Phenomena. Mm-hmm. Is that tangible evidence? I don't know. It's controversial. Among other types of physiologic electronic effects from ghost-like activity. Well, here again, there's nothing irrefutable in the form of evidence that says that a ghost exists or a UFO exists, unless that UFO lands on the White House lawn, so to speak, or we see it on CNN breaking news. But it goes back to the point you made earlier, which was very insightful. How do we measure love? Love exists. How do you prove it? And in a sense, that's the crux of the matter. UFOs do exist. How do you prove it? And that's the fundamental controversial issue. How do you prove it? And a lot of people say, well, it is proven by its effects on things we talked about, nuclear missile sites, individuals, etc. But here again.
Hey, Dr. Bob.
Yeah.
So I was just looking at the clock, and our time is up already.
Well,
see, you were worried about like having it go by too slow, and boom, it's already done.
Oh, well, it did go very fast, and I appreciated the conversation, Dr. Rita.
If people want to get a copy of your book, UFO Phenomena, Should I Believe, where can they pick that up?
Amazon is certainly one place to search it out. Barnes & Noble, too, carries it, but Amazon is the best approach. Or from my website, the UFOphenomenon.com.
If they buy them directly from you, do you autograph them?
I can.
Well, it's priceless, Dr. Bob. Come on, you got to work it.
Yeah, I'll say keep your eyes to the skies. That's how I'll autograph it.
Well, I like that. I like that. Well, it has been a pleasure having you on the show, and I hope my questions weren't so hard because I know you woke up early this morning, and I did tell you to drink coffee.
I did drink a lot, but Dr. Rita, it was a pleasure discussing this unique phenomenon with you, and thank you again for inviting me to be on your wonderful show. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, and I am going to let you go because the music is going to start rolling here any second, okay?
Okay, thanks again.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.
That's Dr. Robert Davis. His book is The UFO Phenomena, Should I Believe? His webpage is the UFOphenomenon.com. And then next week, we're going to be speaking about Pope Francis, the last pope, with Leo Lion Zagami. Should be an interesting show. You just never know.
Week at this time for Just Energy